Welcome into the Hockey Talk Show for this Friday, February 23rd. It is 7:02 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at the time of this broadcast. And the reason why I bring up the exact time is because we have one of the most complicated trades I think I have ever seen in this modern history of the National Hockey League, meaning with this current era of salary cap. The Derrick Brassard trade to the Pittsburgh Penguins, which as of right now, at the time of this broadcast, has not been officially blessed by the league, is one of the most complicated and creative deals that I have ever seen. And we're going to break all that down on this episode of the Hockey Talk Show. Plus, Rick Nash not in the lineup again for the New York Rangers. I don't know if Matt Zuccarello is. We're going to check on all that and follow up on the latest trade rumors as we are just 3 days away, less now, to the trade deadline Monday afternoon right here on the Hockey Talk. Bring it in, baby. Bring it in nice and tight for the real thing. We are live on a Friday. It is 7:04 Eastern Standard Time now. Again, I bring up the time because for those of you that are listening on a podcast or you're going to watch this episode at a later time, it's important to note all of that, especially because we're talking about an ongoing situation, and that is the acquisition of Derrick Brassard for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, there's a lot of wrinkles that goes into this, and first thought first is that I cannot believe the Penguins have found another way to make a big splash at the trade deadline. I hope that Jim Nill is watching this. I hope that Garth Snow is watching this. I hope there's an array of general managers watching this. You take a look at the Pittsburgh Penguins and what they've been able to do at the trade deadline. 2 years in a row running as Stanley Cup champions, they are constantly adding and tweaking to their franchise. They are not one of these stay pat organizations. Jimmy Rutherford is one of the best general managers, if not the best general manager in the National Hockey League. We will go on to this in detail because there's a lot to break down with just this deal alone. We may not even talk about anything else. I think we will, but we're going to talk a lot about this deal because it is super creative. But if you go back in the history of the Hockey Talk Show, not that long ago, I was asked who I thought was the best general manager in the game, and my response was Jimmy Rutherford. And that was despite what George McPhee has done. That was despite what Ray Shero has done over with the New Jersey Devils. The fact that Carolina's been able to maintain its status as a contender. The fact that Colorado was for a while in the playoff race. Despite all those things, I said, and I maintain this to be true, and I don't want to be one of these shows where I'm always pointing out when I'm right. Although I did say the Rangers would melt down and eventually trade Lundqvist, and I still think that's true. But we're getting a lot of stuff right here on the Hockey Talk Show. And the fact that I said that Ray Shero was the best general manager in the game, I maintain that to be true, and it's evident as of right now. Now, I am not as confident in this deal as maybe some others are. I think it's going to go through, but there's part of me that is saying this may not go through. The fact that we've learned about part A and haven't really got much of part B yet of this deal and hasn't made it official just yet is worrisome to me, because I know that there is a certain amount of percentage that you can't go over the cap. And I think technically that would be happening. I think the conversations that are happening in the league now, and I could be wrong about this, but this is pure assumption, is if this deal goes through, technically the Pittsburgh Penguins would be violating that, even if it was only for a split second. You know what I mean? But we'll wait and see, and we'll delve into all of it. It's a very, very complicated issue. Touching briefly on the New York Rangers. Rick Nash not in the lineup as of tonight. I'm trying to figure out if Matt Zuccarello is in the lineup for this evening. I don't know. I would imagine it would behoove, I love using that word, it would behoove the Rangers to keep him out of the lineup, but I think he may be in the lineup. I know that Chris Kreider is returning to the lineup. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't have... It hasn't been posted yet. It's 7:08. They should be dropping the puck any minute now. So we should find out fairly soon what the New York Rangers are doing there. That game is still in a preview. And any minute now, we should go to a box score there and see who is indeed in that lineup. Vegas Golden Knights coverage. Welcome into the show. Go Knights, go. See some McPhee making magic. Is that George? See George McPhee making magic for Vegas. George McPhee is definitely making magic. If Jimmy Rutherford is the best general manager in the game, George McPhee is not far behind him. I would honestly say that George McPhee is the best general manager in the game if it wasn't for the fact that Ray Shero is seriously knocking on the door for 3 in a row for his Pittsburgh Penguins. Okay, now the lineup here, it looks like we're getting it. We got a box score. Kreider is indeed in, and Matt Zuccarello is playing tonight. Rick Nash is a healthy scratch. So that's pretty interesting because from what I understand from a couple of sources is that the conversation for Matt Zuccarello has heated up a little bit. We've gotten a little bit more talk for Matt Zuccarello, and I just find it interesting that the Rangers would risk injury there and acquiring some more assets in exchange for Matt Zuccarello. So to me, that tells me a couple of things, that maybe the talk isn't all that impressive just yet. And maybe they're looking about bringing Matt Zuccarello with them to the next level, to the next step of this organization, which is the rebuild. I certainly think he has a place there. Zibanejad, Zuccarello, Kreider, Shat Deuces. These are guys that you can definitely build off of. Georgiev is playing his second game in a row. I find that to be pretty interesting. I'm surprised there's not more is Lundqvist being traded jargon going on. I think it's hard to move him in the before the deadline. I feel, and I always have felt, that he's going to be an off-season acquisition for somebody if they decided to move him, although he's calmed those rumors down by saying he wants to stay through the rebuild. But we're going to talk about that and the Michael Grabner deal we're going to spend some time on because we've set some prices. I think the Grabner trade is the first time we've really gotten a good sense of what the prices are going to be for the trade deadline this year. The only other thing that we really had was the deal that happened earlier for Matt Duchene, and I thought that that was a little bit of an exaggerated situation because you're acquiring Matt Duchene fairly early in the season, and it's not necessarily fair to use that metric towards, you know, an end of the season trade, a rental trade, if you will. Even though, interestingly enough, we've seen a situation where we're probably going to get more straight up hockey deals than we are rentals for this trade deadline. But that doesn't mean that Kane and Tatar and, you know, Vanek and some of these other guys who are on expiring contracts are going to be moved, because I believe they are. Let me know if you're in the house. Say what's up. I can see Eddie in YouTube. See a bunch of people on Facebook tonight. GM screwed the Caps, but saves George McPhee. Is that George McPhee? But saves and kills it for Vegas. You know, McPhee's firing from Washington was an interesting one. It was warranted. You know, it was warranted. Which is interesting because you look at David Poile and he's continued to knock on that door, but he's advanced slowly every year. McPhee got that, you know, Caps team to a certain place, and then they never seemed to be able to get over that hump. And for Ted Leonsis, it was a play to maybe get them over that hump by firing McPhee and bringing in somebody fresh to see if they could work something out. I agree with the firing. I think you got to make a move at some point. I think that McPhee got himself into a place where he was even frustrated, and you make this move and you make that move, and then you make that Forsberg deal. for Erat, which was a bummed deal, and everybody knew it at the time. But I think you saw a GM who literally threw his heart and soul into that franchise, and everything he had done wasn't getting them to that certain point. Now, was it his fault? Of course not. He was doing the best job he possibly could. And as we can see, since he was fired, the Caps haven't been able to advance that much anyway. Not to say that they won't this year. It's entirely possible. But the move was justified at the time. And sometimes, especially in professional sports where everybody has an expiration date on them, you get to a point where, there's really not much else that you can do. And you just got to kind of move on. That doesn't mean that you're not a good GM. And it doesn't mean that the organization itself isn't trying to do their best. Both are. It's just sometimes these situations do come up. Dave, welcome in. You have Lundqvist overrated and overpriced. I don't know what that means. Have Lundqvist overrated and overpriced. I'm not sure what that means. Eddie V's Leafs 17, Islanders 2 prediction it was far off on score, but wasn't that far off on what exactly happened. Islanders continue to break hearts by losing in overtime. At least they get a point, but that divisional race is super tight. I honestly don't know what's more entertaining, the Metro race between the Islanders, Blue Jackets, and Carolina. Phillies basically got themselves out of it. They're so far in. Or the Western Conference race between the Kings, the Calgary Flames, the Colorado Avalanche, the St. Louis Blues, and the Minnesota Wild. I mean, from Minnesota to Colorado, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams, 4 points apart. It's insane. It's insane. I mean, if anybody thinks that the current state of the game right now isn't the best it's always been, is crazy. Would I like to see a little bit more rough stuff? I would. I'd like to see a little bit more of the tough guy thing back in the game. I don't mind the fights. I kind of hate the way it is now as far as the physicality goes. But this is the best the game has ever been. So I'm not telling everybody to stop booing Gary Bettman. I think we'd all cry, including Gary, if he stopped getting booed. But you have to admit, he, along with all the other people in the National Hockey League offices, have done a really good job growing this game into a competitive state. We really don't know who's going to win the cup. And we got tight races with all these teams super involved, with just a few weeks left in the season. This is as exciting as it gets. You can have Lundqvist overrated and overpriced. That's what Dave meant. That makes sense. Dave, are you a Ranger fan? I'd be interested to see if you were a Ranger fan. It sounds like you are. There's not many Ranger fans that are willing to give up on Lundqvist. That's why I caught so much flack for saying that so early on. But I said it for 2 reasons, and I want everybody to know this. I said it, A, because I believed it to be true. I believe that the Rangers were built wrong. I believe that the Rangers were throwing Band-Aid on top of Band-Aid, and what they're doing now is a necessity. And B, I knew if I said something outlandish and it turned out to be true, it'd be really great publicity for the show. And it's worked out to become that way. Let's see here. Chris, I just joined. So sorry if you covered this. Where do you see Brassard fitting in? I think he would make a solid third line, centering Kessel on his wing. Crazy Brassard is your third line center. Pittsburgh always seems to pull this stuff off and doesn't have to give up key pieces. Geniuses in Pittsburgh. Isles should take notes. I started this show with this. I'm glad you said it. The reason why I'm reading your comment, Chris, and thanks for joining the program, is because I want to bring everybody back around to the main topic of the show, which is the Brassard signing, which is my initial thing of who's the best general manager in the game. Your answer is Jimmy Rutherford. Jimmy Rutherford is the best general manager in the game. Again, he's gone out and he's added a piece, and now the Pittsburgh Penguins are serious contenders. For a team that floundered a bit before these moves, they found a way to get themselves into second place in the Metro Division. Granted, they only have a 4-point lead on Jersey. They're tied with Philly. That's okay, but they managed to get themselves into that position with 61 games played in the season, and now they've added, and now they've got that extra boost of adrenaline to see themselves off through the rest of the season. Let's break down all the interesting pieces of this Derrick Brassard deal, and then we'll talk about Grabner and the prices and Rick Nash sitting and everything else. Again, if you have a comment or a question, hold on to it. We'll grab it in a little bit. and we'll see. Vegas is involved with it. Yes, let's talk about it. So here's what happens. Essentially, Pittsburgh hooks up with Ottawa, and Pittsburgh sends their first pick, a goaltender, and Ian Cole in return for Derrick Brassard. Now, when I first see this, I go, how is this possible? The Pittsburgh Penguins have $380-something thousand in cap space, and Derrick Brassard is a $5 million player. And even if Ian Cole is involved in the deal, he's making what, $3 million? He's making $2 million. The goalie Philip Gustafsson is making $775. So even if you put that in around $3 million, you still have $2 million. You're over the cap. What gives? And then I realized that there's more to this deal. So what essentially is happening, and this is the reason why this is taking so long and why the league hasn't approved. So picture it this way. The Penguins send $3 million and those players in the first round draft to Ottawa. Ottawa sends Derrick Brassard to Pittsburgh. That's where we are right now. Now, the second part of this deal is Derrick Brassard gets traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. He goes to Vegas. Vegas now has him. Vegas then, 1 minute later, this is what's going to happen. We think, at least. Vegas then trades Derrick Brassard back to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Why is this happening, Ant? So that Vegas can then hold part of his salary. You can grab 50% of one's salary when you're sending somebody the other way. So essentially, if they're $2 million over the cap with Brassard's deal, you could trade him to Vegas. Vegas can hold half of his $5 million salary in retention, trade him back to Pittsburgh, and now you have Brassard fitting in under the cap with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm going to take a sip of coffee, and I'm going to let that settle in for everybody. I'm going to enjoy my Starbucks for 10 seconds. Greatest, most creative, wacky trade we have ever seen in the modern era of the salary cap. We've never seen anything else like this. This is insane. The creativity, the genius behind the thinking of this, where I can go out and I can get some center, or I can get Derrick Brassard and figure out a way to hide his money with another team. I mean, pure brilliance. Now, what Pittsburgh is going to have to give up to Vegas to do this, I don't really know. Because essentially, let's say for argument's sake, they trade Brassard and an asset, whether it's a pick or a prospect, to Vegas for Vegas's third round pick, let's say. Essentially, they would send then back Vegas's third round pick for Brassard, so that Vegas would literally lose nothing, and they would acquire in the deal, and Pittsburgh would give up something else and then still be able to get him under because Vegas is retaining their salary. What does Vegas get in return? Nicholas, it's a great question. Don't know. You can ask for picks, prospects. It's whatever George McPhee values holding back half of Derrick Brassard's salary. Now, what's interesting about this is, let's say for argument's sake, the Vegas Golden Knights go to the Stanley Cup Finals and they have to face the Pittsburgh Penguins. They would essentially be working on a deal that would help them, that would help their eventual rival in the Stanley Cup Final. Vegas Golden Knights coverage suggests they give up Crosby in the deal. That would be nice, but I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be lovely. But think about this. If Vegas rolls as hard as they roll, and I think that they are in serious contention for the Stanley Cup Final. I said this before. I think between them, the Preds, and maybe Winnipeg, one of those three, St. Louis, one of those 3 or 4 teams are going to come out of the West. Essentially, Vegas could be helping their future Stanley Cup final opponent in this trade. Could happen. The odds are, I mean, God knows what the odds are. I don't know what those odds would be, that those two teams would wind up in the Stanley Cup final together. But their odds are certainly possible. But what it is for George McPhee is he is able then again to acquire some assets for literally nothing, for literally hiding a couple of $1 million on his salary cap sheet. And what does Bill Foley care? He's got more money than God. He can do it. It's a couple $1 million anyway. None. Pittance to them. Pittance. It's a genius move. And I don't know who created it. And I'm going to give Jimmy Rutherford credit because I don't think that George McPhee is calling Jimmy Rutherford going, hey, I figured out a way for you to get Derrick Brassard. But in these conversations, in these kicking tire sessions, at some point, the idea came up between McPhee and Rutherford and him saying, look, if you need help with cap, we can kind of work it out. I can hide some for you. And, that phrase, I can hide that for you, not the first time it's been uttered in Las Vegas. Okay. And it ain't going to be the last time. So McPhee taking a page from some of the shady people just outside of the strip, going like this. Psst, hey, buddy, I can help you with that. Need help? You need to hide onto that? I'll hold on to this for you for a little while, and I'll give it back to you. He's Clemenza. George McPhee has become Clemenza. He's GM Clemenza in this deal. That's essentially what we're looking at. Essentially, what has happened is Jimmy Rutherford was shouting across from this guy, Godfather. Anybody? All right. It's a brilliant maneuver. It really is. How Pittsburgh was able to acquire a $5 million player that by all rights is a phenomenal second line center. And they're going to slot him on their third line behind Crosby and Malkin and play him with, Phil Kessel. It's just beyond ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous. It really changed the entire dynamic of the Metropolitan Division. Dave, did not know that. Thanks. Dave, buddy, pal, everybody else. This is why I'm here. This is what I do, bud. Give you the information that everybody else leaves out. That's what we do. This is the community, and I love it. Love every bit of it. You want to thank me, bud? Share this video to everybody. Tell all your hockey-loving friends to like the Hockey Talk Show. Follow them on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll continue to grow this audience, and we'll be able to do a lot more in the future. So as far as what happens from here on out, we'll have to wait and see what George McPhee's price is for being Clemenza. Or actually, technically, I think he would be Don Corleone in this situation. Jimmy Rutherford would be Clemenza. Clemenza asked Don Corleone to hold on to the guns. That's essentially what happened. Vegas Golden Knights coverage. I have 200. What are you waiting for, bud? Make it happen, Vegas Golden Knights coverage. We've been talking about the Vegas Golden Knights for a long time, man. I'm picking them to go to the Stanley Cup final. You need to tell all your followers where the Hockey Talk is at. It's right here, baby. Right here. 5 live shows a week, each and every single night. And we pop the channel on whenever there's huge breaking news, which I assume is going to happen at some point this weekend, especially before the trade deadline on Monday. Daniel, I'm a vegan who loves hockey. I have no friends. Vegas Golden Knights. See if you can get some vegan-loving hockey friends for Daniel as well, too. He needs the help. I feel bad for you. You can't eat meat and you got no friends? Jesus. Jeez, that's a tough existence. That is a tough existence. So I don't know what George McPhee is going to get. But like I said, I think the complication comes, and we haven't gotten ratification from the league yet. There's obviously a trade call. League has to see what's involved, and they have to give the blessing and say, okay. We haven't had that yet, and I think what's holding that up is teams can only go above the, you can go, I think you can go 10% or something above the cap, and I don't know if this is in the offseason only or whatever the case is, but technically, and I think that this might be the thing that could hang this deal up, Pittsburgh will be over the cap considerably by at least $2 million for a certain period of time, even if that's 1 second or an hour, whatever it is. I don't know if the league will say, okay, you can do this. It's maneuvering. At the end of the day, they get it done and they're fine. I don't know if they have a certain period of time to do that during the actual season. They might. For instance, waivers takes 24 hours. You put a player on waivers, you wait till noon the next day to see if they clear. Maybe a team has a 24-hour time period if they were to go over the cap that they can come back down. But I know that there's some strict rules and CBA things, and believe me, not only do I not know, the insiders in the hockey league doesn't know, nobody really knows. There's probably lawyers right now sitting there ruining their Friday night figuring out if they could literally do this. Nobody seems to be worried about it. I haven't really heard any chatter about it, but I think about it. I think that this might be one of the reasons. I don't think that you do part A of this without having part B done. You know, so I think the hang up is with the league. In fact, I think Bob McKenzie confirmed that there is some issues with, the league is looking into it. So I think what we're saying here is pretty close to correct. But I think I think the McPhee Vegas part is done already, but we don't know about it yet because they have to figure out part A. Can Pittsburgh literally absorb this contract, even if it only is for a split second? Even if it only is for a split second. I don't know. What do you think? Should they be able to? Can a team go $2 million over the cap during the year, even if it is only for 3 seconds? I think it's fine. Not that I want to help Pittsburgh, but I think it's fine. So that's the Brassard deal if it goes through. And I think it will, but I don't know. I mean, the only way it doesn't go through literally is if other teams raise hell. If other teams say, hey, this isn't right, they can't do this. That's the only way this would kind of go through. And that's not entirely out of the realm of possibility. Want to say hey to the Red Light Hockey folks again. Our show is coming through on their page, so I hope you guys are enjoying it. If you don't know about NHL Red Light Hockey, it's a great group on Facebook that does a lot of hockey talk, a lot of just posting and things like that during the day. They don't do live talk like this. But the folks over there have been nice enough to allow us to do this on that page, as well as the Hockey Talk Show page where we originate from. So we thank them for welcoming us into their home. It has certainly been nice, and I think the NHL Red Light folks who are just members of the page have been enjoying the live talk, and that makes me happy. The Brassard deal is cool. Let's talk about the Grabner deal. Let's circle back to that for a second there, because I believe we finally had prices set. We talk about what could Rick Nash go for, and Grabner goes for Igor Rykov and a second-round pick. So a second-round pick and a prospect. Is Rykov lighting the league on fire as far as prospects go? Not really, but any prospect is a good prospect. It's the whole idea. The word prospect means could be really good. So that's a good price. And you look at, Grabner and where he is. Again, I said, watch out for his stats because he had 7 empty net goals this season. So even though he's sitting there with some impressive totals as far as goals go, he has 25 at this point. 7 of those came in the empty net. Still, 18 goals, not all that bad of a deal. He only has 6 assists. Grabner not known as much of a playmaker. He's more of a send me the puck as I rip down the ice and I'll get a breakaway. And by the way, I will miss 6 breakaways before I finally score a goal. But it's okay because I get around 9 breakaways a game, so it all tends to kind of even out a little bit when it comes to Michael Grabner. By the way, it's no surprise that he's got 7 empty net goals because he gets open in any situation. So with no goalie there, he's good to go. Love his game. Was a fan of his when he was with the Islanders. He's not a consistent player by any means. He's a very snake-bitten player. If he had finish to his game, I'm telling you, and I'm not exaggerating, if Michael Grabner had finish to his game, he would be a 60-goal scorer. That's how many opportunities he gets. His speed is lightning. I don't know who's faster, him or Carl Hagelin. I really don't. But I think, we all make a big deal out of Connor McDavid's speed. I think that Michael Grabner could beat him hands down. I think Michael Grabner could stop in the middle of the race and then start up again and still beat Connor McDavid. His speed is ridiculous, but the guy's got no finish. He gets so many opportunities. His shooting percentage stinks. He just never finishes. He's a great deke. He's got great talent. He's just snake bitten in that way. And by the way, he's the kind of snake bitten that still scores 25 goals. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like he's horrible, but he would literally be a 60 goal scorer if he had more finish to his game. But he's hot and cold. He's had some great years. He's had a lot of mediocre years. But it's a great grab for the Devils because, like I said, it was going to be a great grab for anybody. For lack of a better term. He's a third line player, maybe second line. He's got tons of speed. He kills penalties. He can score. If he gets a breakaway and he does convert, great for you, you know. And he's a really good guy. And most of all, what I think is wonderful about this whole entire thing, he's got a family. He's got a kid. I think he has one kid, if not two. And he doesn't have to move now. You just got to drive a little bit farther over the bridge. So he's picking up a toll a little bit more. No problem. No problem. If he goes up and takes the George Washington, no toll whatsoever. But I think they're paying him enough that he can pay the tolls there. And there's no toll at the Lincoln Tunnel anyway. Is there? Think of that. No, there isn't. So you're good to go, Grabs. You're good to go. Free ride over the or under the river. Great grab for the New Jersey Devils. We talk about speed in the game and how important it is, and they got a lot of fast players over there, and Taylor Hall and all these guys. I think Grabner fits in really nice. I think it ups their defensive game a little bit with Boyle and Wood and all these guys. I think that Jersey made themselves a little bit tougher to play against. And again, you look at what Pittsburgh has done, and they've really upset the apple cart by going out and getting Brassard if it goes through. Now you're looking at a league where what's the Flyers going to do? What are the Islanders going to do if you really want to get in? What's Carolina going to do if you really want to get in? What's Columbus want to do if you want to stay in contention? Because now you look around and all these other teams are starting to arm themselves. You better figure it out. You better figure it out, or else you're going to be a first-round exit if you even do make it into the playoffs. And I'm talking to Carolina, and I'm talking to the New York Islanders, and I'm talking to Columbus. Because one of these teams, two of these teams at least, are going to fall out of the playoff spot. I think this keeps New Jersey in the race. I think New Jersey and Philly are going to flip-flop for the wild card. I think the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to take off and solidify their spot. And I think it's going to be a hell of an interesting race. By the way, again, if you look at the Eastern Division here, Washington has 75 points. Pittsburgh and Philly have 74 for the top three. Jersey is only 4 points behind them, and they're in the first wild card spot. Now, there's a 5 points difference separating the Islanders and Columbus, who have 65, and Jersey, who has 70. But, I mean, any bunch of things could happen. The Washington Capitals could technically wind up in a wild card spot. It's possible. With 21 games left in the season, it is entirely possible. I don't think it's probable, but it's possible. I can see Philly flopping down. I can see Jersey coming back up. We'll have to wait and see. We'll really have to wait and see. Chris, I know you covered this the other day, but now it's official. I would love to laugh at your disdain for this signing of Josh Bailey without Tavares. In a sense, it might be smart since JT has admitted chemistry and his like for Bailey, and this maybe some leverage to keep Tavares now. Even still, Bailey is useless if Tavares leaves, and the Islanders aren't doing anything outside of Bailey to show JT that they're committed to winning. Completely true, Chris. I love your statements. I do have some disdain for Josh Bailey. I think he's really turned his game on this year. I think he's been really, really great for the Islanders. I think this deal, it is pretty rough if they don't re-sign JT, but I do think that they will. I think this deal is really a signifier of John Tavares really not having too many options, which is kind of hilarious because he'll have every team in the league throwing money at him. But it's not about money for Tavares. It's about a little bit more than that. I think that Tavares is a goddamn lock if the Islanders make a move and really improve their team down the stretch. I think he definitely stays. I think if Garth Snow shows him some love and gets him a decent goaltender or a better defenseman, all the better for John. I think if he pulls Matt Martin back into the fold, it'll be good enough to keep him. But I think this is really a move where You're getting your arena, even though you're going to have to wait 3 years. You got all your friends and family here. You love the area. He loves living on Long Island. He can have all the money he wants. You know, he can have no trades and whatever else. You know, he can have everything right here. Does he want to move on? And it makes sense. Does the San Jose Sharks really give him a better opportunity to win? Do the New York Rangers really give him a better opportunity to win? I mean, right now, no. You know? And the other thing is, you look at Stamkos, right? You look at, I'm trying to think who else. You know, Taves and Kane and Sid and even Evgeny Malkin. Whenever any of these guys have had a chance to walk, they have all re-signed. They have all re-signed. The last time you had a star free agent 27-year-old leave his team willingly and sign somewhere else, I mean, I can't even remember. I can't even remember. Scott Gomez, Bobby Holik was older than that. When was the last time it happened? When was the last time a star player in his prime rode his contract out to the end and then went and signed somewhere else? It really doesn't happen. National Hockey League players tend to be loyal, and John Tavares is as loyal comes. He makes loyalty look bad. Loyalty looks at John Tavares and goes, damn, that's loyal. I wish I could be that way. Eddie V, JT is a Leaf on July 1st. You know, 3 years ago, I can't argue with you. But now the Leafs flat out don't need him. And by the way, Leafs fans, you should be super excited that you don't need John Tavares anymore. You know, you flat out don't need him. You have everything. You could use a defenseman. You could use Ryan McDonough. But you got a great goaltender. I watched that game, Isles and Leafs, last night. The Leafs are fun to watch. They're great. They're fast. You know, Anderson let in a couple of easy ones. And by the way, the post saved him 2 or 3 times in that game. But still, he's wild. He's great. They got the goalie they need. You got Austin Matthews, who, by the way, is hurt now. And they believe it's his shoulder. And who knows what that's going to do for Lou Lamoriello heading into the deadline. Does he have to make some more moves now? Which is what's so interesting about this time of year. You can go from everything's cool, we'll see if we can make some hockey news, to, oh my God, our franchise player has another shoulder problem, and is he going to be back? Because, you know, Toronto is a shoo-in to make the playoffs because, you know, their next, what is it? Detroit is their next team that's close to them, and they've got like a 20-something point lead on Detroit. You know, they're going to be in the playoffs, but are you going to make a run? Is he going to miss the first round? If Matthews is going to miss the first round, I think the Maple Leafs have to do something as far as forwards go. That's when like a Kane makes sense. Like bring in Kane, bring in Vanek. And then if you got to sit a guy like that, you know, because you want to keep your core back when Austin Matthews comes back, then you do it. Then you sit him if you have to. But, you know, Toronto doesn't need, you know, Tavares. Could they have gotten They could have gotten Stamkos. Could you imagine what this team would have been like if they had Stamkos when they had a chance? But again, Stamkos balked. He didn't go. He decided to stay loyal. He thought his best chance to win was in Tampa. And that's going to be John Tavares' best chance to win as well. We were going to get a little bit into Peter Chiarelli. He had a press conference. We've done about 40 minutes or so, so I think we're going to wrap it up a bit here. But Chiarelli, I'll surmise his press conference instead of playing it for you guys. Chiarelli looked at his team and really pointed to speed as being a factor. Chiarelli's looking around and going, we've got to get faster. We've got a couple of issues. He doesn't know if he's going to be able to fix them at the deadline. He's certainly kicking around. And by the way, if you have questions, get the questions in now. Let's go through the questions now as we wrap up here. As I wrap up with the Edmonton Oilers. But Chiarelli is recognizing some of the faults of his team, and he realizes he's got to fix those faults. They were asking him, you know, is it a blow up? Is it a rebuild? Is it a remodel? Whatever you're going to call it. Chiarelli's not blowing it up. He just recognizes he's got to get this team faster. And Lucic is a big problem with that. Their bottom six is a big problem with that. They got some moves to make. It's not impossible. If you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, I know you're frustrated, but believe me when I say you're still close. You're still close. And this is going to be a team where Chiarelli makes the right moves in the offseason, whether it be trade or free agent. The Edmonton Oilers are going to be a team to reckon with. I think he needs to fix his goaltending. But again, you got to give Cam Talbot, I know it sucks, but you got to give him another year to see if he can figure it out. Can they shore it up, bringing in a second option? Maybe that would be the way to go. Bring in a 1A to see if you can push Cam a little bit. But, you know, Cam has the ability. It's if he can step up and take it. And that's what no general manager ever knows. No player ever knows if they're going to step up and take it. So if you have any questions about your team or anything that's going on, shoot it to me now. We'll answer it now before we give our predictions for the games tonight, which have already started. So it should make the predictions a little bit easier. Chris, what is your opinion of the pickup of Darcy Kemper going to Arizona without first signing Ronta? I'm the biggest believer in Ronta. He's been so good for that team, and people haven't noticed. Something that we talked about here when I said that the Islanders need to target a goaltender, and I looked around the league. He's better than Braden Holtby this season. He's better than Henrik Lundqvist. He's better than a lot of goaltenders. And he's got a terrible win-loss record, but that's because of his team. You look at his goals against and what he's been able to do with practically nothing in front of him, and he's been downright outstanding. I think that John Chayka is immature and a little bit stupid, and I think that he thinks very analytically, which is surprising to me because he should be seeing these numbers that I'm seeing. But I don't think he has a lot of heart. I think he's all brain and numbers and not a lot of heart. And anybody can see that this kid is, if not a 1A kind of a goaltender. And I thought his comments were pretty disrespectful towards Ronta when he was asked if he's shopping Ronta. You know, he essentially said, well, we have a little bit of time before the deadline. I'm not shopping him, but we'll have to see if he steps up and takes the position. I don't know how you say that about the only decent player on your team. I mean, he has stepped up. He played damn good. I would have never said that if I was John Chayka. And then you go ahead and grab Darcy Kemper, and then you sign him to a deal, and you have Ronta just sitting there, you know, flapping in the wind. Not the way I would want to be treated if I was a goaltender of Ronta's caliber. Because if I'm him and I'm that good, you should be throwing a lot my way to keep me on your horrible team. And that's the way I'm sure his agent is talking to him. What I said about Ronta was, you know, he's going to grab more from Arizona. I don't know him. I don't know what kind of a player he is. But if he's the kind of player that most are, he's going to say, look, you want me to stay here? You got to pay me $5 or $6 million. Do I think he's a $6 million goaltender? I don't. I think he can only get $3 or $4 million from any other team. But it just depends on where he wants to be. Does he want to make $6 million and play for an awful team? Or does he want to make $3 million and win a championship and be happy every day? I don't know. But I definitely think that Arizona has to pay a tax when it comes to a player like this if they're going to be that bad. And the tax is going to be at least $1 million or $2 million or $1.5 million more than what any other team is going to be willing to give you. And by the way, there are going to be plenty of teams that want to get their hands on that goals against average come July 1st. Because there's plenty of teams that are dealing with goaltending woes that could use a little help. Philly, the Islanders, Anaheim, Florida. You know, I'd certainly love Ranta over Reimer, you know, to go along with Luongo. Who, by the way, had some really kind comments. I'm not going to play them, but I thought the Florida Panthers and Roberto Luongo showed nothing but class in their game last night as they paid tribute to the young kids who lost their lives over in Stoneman Douglas. I really, really thought they did a nice job and did a nice presentation. We showed you the patches and we showed you the helmets. But, you know, they really just put together a nice little ceremony, had some of the stuff up on the boards and, you know, had some nice comments and things to say. And the Panthers have been, going around and doing a lot with the community as far as, visiting schools and blood drives and things like that. So they've been super active in the community. So kudos to the Florida Panthers for really just doing a tremendous job in the wake of tragedy. Again, what the Vegas Golden Knights did at the beginning of their season, what the Florida Panthers are doing now, the class of the National Hockey League, not to take any other league down, but I just think it's the classiest league in the world, filled with a bunch of kind-hearted people that always show up when the outside world needs them. So good on the Florida Panthers for everything that they do and will continue to do from this season on out. Interesting to note that Stoneman Douglas is in Parkland, Florida, and that is where Roberto Luongo lives. That's where his wife is actually from, which is why he wanted to go back to the Panthers to begin with. And as it turns out, they live in the same exact town where this school was, or is. So that was a pretty significant moment last night for the Panthers and for Roberto Luongo. And it's scary as hell when it's in your own backyard, man. I can tell you that, living here in New York. So good on them for everything that they have done so far since this horrific incident happened just a few days ago. Final questions. I think we're good here. If Vegas does one thing before the deadline, what do you think they'll go after, and what do you think they'll give up? I'm in a place where I keep thinking, don't try and improve anything right now. More risk ruining the good that they have. I'm with you on that one. I think that you don't mess with chemistry. They've had outstanding chemistry. They have a great work ethic. They're a tight-knit group. They're all buying in to the coach and what he's doing. They've bought into the general manager and what he's doing. They bought into Chance and what Chance is doing. I mean, the players have bought into everything on every single level. And I really wouldn't mess with that too much. I would add, but I wouldn't subtract. But if it doesn't really make a whole hell of a lot of sense, I really wouldn't worry about it. Like, for instance, would I add Rick Nash or Thomas Vanek? No, probably not. I wouldn't add Evander Kane because he takes too many shots holding up money. You don't need a distraction. It's nothing against Evander Kane. It's whatever he wants to do in the offseason is fine. And it's nothing against the Vegas Golden Knights. I just don't want the media in my locker room asking about the bundles of cash. I know Evander Kane has a place in Vegas. So I wouldn't want to add because I wouldn't want players in my locker room having to answer those questions for the rest of the playoff run instead of focusing on the games. I would add very, very delicately. And I wouldn't take away too much from what I have if I'm George McPhee. But if I'm George McPhee, I would spend most of my time this weekend and Monday looking in the mirror, telling myself how great of a job I did, because that's where he needs to be. He doesn't need to be making too many phone calls. He needs to be just telling himself he did a good job because he did a phenomenal job. I mean, he literally has taken $33 some odd million in cap space and used it as an asset to help Pittsburgh with this deal and acquire some things in return. Daniel, Kane in Vegas would be stupid. It would be. Kane could easily upset a team's chemistry. We've seen him do it before. That's why he got asked out of Winnipeg. But you look at the Vegas Golden Knights, they got plenty to give up. They have a first and a second, a fourth, 2 fifths, 2 sixes this season in this upcoming draft. And every year after that, it gets more ridiculous. They have their first in 19. They have their second, Columbus's, and the New York Islanders' second. So they have 3 picks in the second round. They have 2 picks in the third round and 2 picks in the fifth round. In 2020, they have their first, 3 picks again in the second round. There's Dallas's and Pittsburgh's. There's going to be a lot of Pittsburgh picks in the Vegas organization. And all the rest of their picks up to the 7th round. They are just asset heavy. So if they need to give up a 2019 second or a 2019 second and a third to make an improvement, they could. So if you're asking, can they add without taking away? They absolutely could. It would be very easy for them to do so. But again, as anybody can tell you with a chemistry set, it might sound good to add something, but even if you do, it doesn't necessarily help you. Now, who could they get? Honestly, there's a bunch of things to look at as far as that goes. I think Zuccarello would be great. Grabner would have been good. Again, I'm going to just pick the guys that are, speed crazy. I wouldn't add Maroon. Letestu, maybe. The center position was a worry for them in the beginning of the season, but Carlson's done so well. He's eliminated any question there. But Letestu is a good center with some playoff experience. Hoffman would be a possibility. I've heard they're in on McDonough. That would make sense to me, even though they have a whole slew of defensemen. And I like their D-core because they move the puck up the ice, Schultz and all those guys. I wouldn't. I would add McDonough. I would add McDonough. He's a great player. It hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out for him in New York, but that's not all entirely his fault. That's really not all entirely his fault. He's a good player. He's got a lot of leadership. I mean, if you're Vegas, I wouldn't be so diehard to add McDonough, but if the deal was too good to turn down, I would do it. But I don't know if the Golden Knights want to mortgage that much. Did I say Schultz? I meant Schmidt. I don't know if the Vegas Golden Knights want to mortgage that much their future. And they have so many defensemen. If you ask me, a little bit of experience somewhere. I mean, but they have Marc-Andre Fleury, so I'm trying to justify an answer. Honestly, no, I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't do anything. If they added McDonough, I wouldn't be upset. But I wouldn't really do anything. I would think Vegas could make a trade for first for Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Yeah, it's possible. And you know what? They've been linked to. Now here's a good thing we can talk about to wrap up. Vegas has been linked to. Forget Oliver Ekman-Larsson for a second. Vegas has been linked to Carlson. I'm really great. I'm so grateful. This is one of the points that I really wanted to hammer home. The Carlson deal has changed so much. And I have to give Pierre Dorian credit for this. The cost for getting Carlson now, forget whatever you're going to give back in return. You got to take Bobby Ryan. That's what this conversation has turned into for the Ottawa Senators. You want Erik Karlsson? Great. We can talk about what you can give me, but just know the price is you got to take Bobby Ryan too. And when I sit there and I talk about the Ottawa Senators, we've broken this team down a ton before. I've said their biggest problem now is that Bobby Ryan contract. And Pierre Dorian should get the George McPhee Medal of Honor for general managers this year if he is able to rid himself both of Dion Phaneuf and Bobby Ryan. Because for you to come in and take over this team and get rid of two of the worst contracts in the league, you deserve a medal for that. You deserve a medal for that. That would be phenomenal if Ottawa was put in a position where they were able to do that. Because that Phaneuf deal, I didn't think anybody would ever take that. And sure, they had to take back some salary. And yes, they had to take Gaborik back. But I think they're going to buy out Gaborik. So that'll rid them of his 4.8 a little bit more. And now you have Bobby Ryan making 7.2. And once he's gone, now you have a lot more space to work with. And not necessarily space to get, Karlsson under contract, but space to do whatever you want. Pierre Dorian is looking to set himself up to put himself in a position where he can start to build his own team. And that's part of this Brassard deal, because not only are you moving Brassard's $5 million off your books, but you're getting back a first-round draft pick, which you had to give up for Matt Duchene. I said this in the beginning. Dorian is in love with Matt Duchene, and he's going to build this franchise around him. And that is one of the reasons why Karlsson is going. He doesn't want to build a franchise around Karlsson. He wants to build a franchise around Matt Duchene. He believes that Matt Duchene is the key for the Ottawa Senators to win a Stanley Cup one day. Eddie, Ryan is injury prone. It's not the point. The point is, if you want the brilliance of Erik Karlsson, you have to take the awfulness of Bobby Ryan and his injury-prone $7.25 million making ass. That's what you got to take if you want to get Erik Karlsson on your team. It's a fair price. Literally, there's no, and I'm sure he's still going to ask for a first and some prospects, but he's not going to ask for 2 firsts, a second, your best prospect ever in return for Karlsson. It better off you keep that best prospect ever. Give me a halfway decent prospect. Give me only 1 pick, and take Bobby Ryan off my hands. That is a better deal by far. That's a better deal by far, because $7.2 million to pay Bobby Ryan till 21, 22 sucks. And if you're Vegas, take it. Thanks, Bobby Ryan. There's the door. We'll send you your buyout checks every year. Because what does the Vegas Golden Knights care? They can take another 7.25 on their books because, they got $33 million in space. And they can still sign Neal and all the guys that they need to get done. So Vegas has put themselves in a great position. And if they had Karlsson, you got him for another year, that helps. Karlsson will look really nice next to Schmidt and Theodore and everybody else who moves that puck out of that defensive zone faster than any other team in the league. That would be one hell of a look for the Vegas Golden Knights. Ottawa rumors that they wanted 2 first-round picks, Alex Tuch, and a second-rounder for Karlsson. Yeah, now would you give up Tuch, 1 first-round pick, and your prospect for Karlsson and Ryan? Because I would. I would do just fine. And who cares what Bobby Ryan does? He's not hampering your team. And at the time when it comes that where you actually then are start to pay these young guys in Vegas, you just buy out Ryan and you'll have the space that you need. You can actually re-sign Karlsson if you had to. You'll have the space. You'll have plenty of space if you're the Vegas Golden Knights. So I think that the Vegas Golden Knights are in a great position to go out and acquire Erik Karlsson, especially now that the price tag is you got to get stuck with Bobby Ryan's deal, which really sort of eliminates them from going to Tampa unless Stevie Yzerman does what Jimmy Rutherford just did, and he gets to keep Karlsson and he gets to throw Bobby Ryan Vegas's way, and he has to give up some picks and prospects so that Vegas takes Bobby Ryan on. That is also a possibility. But if I'm McPhee and I'm going to go into battle, to the victor goes the spoils, and the spoils are Karlsson, I want Karlsson too. But maybe George wants to go the other way. We all know that Tampa is laden with picks and laden with good prospects. So they have plenty to spread around, but the price you're going to have to pay is exorbitant. And again, I just don't see Tampa giving up on Sergachev and Hedman and all that to add in Karlsson. I just don't see it. It just doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense to me. All right, 8 o'clock on the button. We'll wrap it here. We'll go to our predictions for the night, which should be easy. Here's Eddie's predictions. Pittsburgh over Carolina, 6-3. WAG, 5. St. Louis, 4. I don't know who that's supposed to be. Chicago, 4. San Jose, 2. Who's playing St. Louis tonight? Winnipeg. Oh, that's supposed to be Winnipeg. Okay. It's unfair, but Minnesota's leading over the Rangers 2-0. Give me Minnesota for the rest of the game. It is. Let's see here. How is it? Are we still on the first with Pittsburgh and Carolina? 0-0. Give me Pittsburgh over Carolina tonight. Give me Winnipeg over. Do I like Winnipeg over St. Louis? You know what? I'm going to go against Eddie V. Eddie, I'm making this pick strictly to just make this interesting between you and I. I'm going to go with St. Louis at home. Give me St. Louis at home. Give me San Jose against Chicago. Give me the Vegas Golden Knights against the Vancouver Canucks. By the way, Eddie's picking Vegas over Vancouver by 24 goals. He says Vegas 25, Vancouver 1. I'm liking these picks, by the way. I'm liking these picks. I like Vegas 25, Vancouver. You weren't that far wrong. You got the winner right with the Islanders last night. Oh no, you got the winner wrong. I shouldn't say that. You got the winner wrong last night. But I like the 24 goal lead picks. Those are pretty good. Didn't think we would do an hour tonight, but we did. So that is all because of you guys. Thank you so much for the continued support. And again, Share this on Facebook, share this on Twitter, wherever you can post it. I don't even care if you're on Tumblr these days. Put it on Tumblr. Make sure you spread the word about what we're doing here on the Hockey Talk Show, and make sure everybody not only follows and subscribes on Facebook and YouTube, but that you're getting the notifications. I can't emphasize enough how super important that is. Tell all your friends to follow us on Facebook. You got to be getting those notifications first. If you're not, you're going to be missing out, especially over the weekend and on Monday. We're going to be going live randomly throughout the course of the day, all day long throughout the trade deadline. And if you're not set up to get the notifications, Facebook will not let you know when we go live. So if you're on your Facebook page and you're on the Hockey Talk Show page, you like the page, put your mouse over a follow. Make sure you're seeing notifications first. Make sure you're getting notifications on all posts. That is super, super important. Congruently on YouTube, there's a little bell next to the subscribe button. Hit that bell. Make sure you're getting all our notifications, because we may be live for 3 hours on Monday. We may be live for 20 minutes 4 times throughout the course of the day, and then wrapping it up at night again. I really don't know what we're going to be doing. If, Rick Nash gets moved tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be here, we're going to be here talking about it. So make sure you're getting the notifications and make sure you're spreading the word. We've grown very quickly so far this year, quicker than I thought we would. And that's all because of your guys' generosity to spread the word on us. So thank you for that. Vegas Golden Knights coverage wants to let everybody know that they're recapping the Vegas game on their channel. So search Vegas Golden Knights coverage on YouTube if you would like to partake in some Vegas Golden Knights coverage. There you go. Hope you'll continue to join us, VGKC, and everybody else who's been here from the beginning. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to this weekend. Again, look out for us popping up randomly here with the trade deadline looming, and enjoy the hockey action tonight, tomorrow night, and Sunday. We'll be back here Monday.